Hey guys, this is the first video in the playlist called the Pain Predicament. And what I want to talk about here today is not necessarily about opioids. We have obviously a opioid epidemic that is hopefully on its way out, getting better than it was, but that's not the direction that I necessarily want to go. However, it could include some of that. What I want to talk about mainly is pain, and that would encompass acute pain and chronic pain from injuries or otherwise. There's a lot of pain that people are in, and they're not. They didn't have like a blunt trauma, and so this can be really concerning for people. And if they're not seeing anything in the X-rays or MRIs, usually they're recommended drugs, maybe even surgery. But all of that is old sort of information, old science. The new science is pointing to use drugs and surgery as more of a kind of last resort, and use the less invasive treatments, as first priority. So that's the direction that I want to go, because it can be so baffling for a lot of people. And if you've gone to your healthcare practitioner, they have probably sent you in that direction to begin with. However, nowadays it is getting better, and I have to admit, and I'm happy about that. I'm happy that people are going towards less invasive treatments. Typically, then the next step would be to get PT, physical therapy, because that's often covered by people's insurance, and so that would be the next step that most people would take. What I'm seeing is that the PT, because it is under insurance, unless it's cash pay, and unless those cash pay physical therapists are up to date in science, they're still using it a lot in the way of protocol. So, and even alternative medicine practitioners can use it in this direction, right? Protocol is basically, I guess it's another way of saying we are chasing symptoms, right? If you've got low back pain, for instance, these are the exercises, these are the treatments that we typically do for people who have low back pain. That's not a very good, it's not sciencey. It can work, but it's not very precise, and it doesn't get consistent results. More consistent results are going to come from when we make the client as the center of treatment, or the client as the center, looking at the client's story, because often pain is about a much bigger, broader, more multifaceted thing than just the area that is, bothering us, right? So does that make sense? If pain could be remedied by rubbing the area where we're feeling it, no one would be in pain. But pain is always multifaceted. Pain always has two components. They're never separate. Those are the physical reality of it, and an emotional component to it. In terms of the emotional realm, I would broaden that to mean much more than emotional, because emotions are largely governed by, in the brain, and that has to do with, our past history. It could have to do with, generations, genealogy, what we've inherited from our parents and forefathers. It could have to do with our personal history, things that have gone on in life, different types of traumas, incidents, beliefs, what we were told by either authorities or society. So there's a lot that can go into I guess, that emotional realm. So I don't limit it to emotions, but some of the researchers have done that. So I can't breach their definition, but I'll say that I would broaden it. I don't think that emotions, like in my understanding of emotions, like anger, depression, anxiety, it's not always simply in that realm, but always, all of us have emotions. So certainly you can't remove that. Um, and so that's just how I want to start. I want to start just by saying that the majority of pain, whether it's acute pain or chronic pain, has those two components of our physical bodies and another internal aspect to us. So what's an example of that? Um, Here's an example. I teach about and work with people in pain, all day long. And so, you know, pain information is something that I study. It's something that I'm constantly working on with people. And so you would think that I have a pretty good grasp of pain, right? And you might even think, or I used to think, that um, pain doesn't define me as much as yeah, I feel like I would have a lot more control and agency over pain than I do. But here's an example that even someone who's working in the realm of pain and constantly interested in how it works and overcoming the sensation of pain when it's not very important, I guess. Um, I can even succumb to the sensation of pain. So one time when my kid was on my back, in his backpack, I was working in the kitchen, and he reached over and grabbed a plastic measuring cup from the counter, and he dropped it, and it hit my foot, and I was like, oh, it was painful. And then I said to myself, wait, this is a great opportunity to experience, to have a subjective experience of pain and to try and deal with it like I teach my clients. So basically, I make myself the guinea pig or the test tube, right? Because I want to make sure that I'm connected and empathetic or sympathetic to my clients, and I can help them through the process, both verbally and with different aspects of my work. Um, and so it hurt like heck. And I said to myself, okay, let me check to see if I'm okay. And I looked down at my foot. I wasn't wearing socks or anything. And my foot was fine. It wasn't bleeding. And I said to myself, wow, that was a plastic measuring cup and it hit my foot. The weight of that thing could not have broken a bone. So it didn't pierce my skin. It didn't break my bone, but it was still excruciating. Why was it excruciating? That was the question that I needed to answer, because I wasn't in any real threat. So here goes like the newer version of science, I guess, that we really need to update our science, especially around pain. So any threat, even the most simple of living creatures, if they feel threatened, they're going to move away from that thing that threatens them. Or you could say they'll feel pain. They're made to feel pain so that they can perceive a threat and move away quickly without having to, use reasoning to make a judgment and a decision and an action. Right? That would take too long if it was a life-threatening situation. And so, but when I started to knock down those issues of, oh, it's not threatening, it didn't pierce my skin. Oh, it's not threatening, it didn't break a bone, I must be fine. When I started to logically make kind of knock down the argument that it's actually a threatening situation, I felt the pain sensations drop and then go away. So with a lot of pain, we want to be able to do that. Now, I'm not saying that's easy, because there are a lot of, it's a thing to navigate. It's a thing to navigate. Part of it is you have to know yourself. There's a whole bunch of stuff. But that's just an example that I want to give you around this pain predicament that we're in, that hasn't really been spelled out. We haven't heard enough examples of people getting out of pain, and examples of, pain that we feel that's not necessarily, and even it could be excruciating, and it could be excruciating for a long period of time. But certain factors keep us in that pain loop. So let's just stop there. I want you to just think about that a little bit. Let it resonate with you. That's not going to make all your pain go away. I don't expect that. But again, this is just building, and we have to have conversations about it. If you have any questions or any examples, feel free to put them in the comments. That would be helpful for people. And that's what ultimately we want. We want to be helpful for people. All right, guys, Chris of Medicine Evolution. Hope that's helpful, and we'll see you on the next.